So what advice would you give to an athlete that is the favourite for the competition and he's got that pressure or she's got that pressure of everyone looking on them?
Being tipped for favourite is of course going to pile the pressure on.
Yeah.
And anybody in that moment is going to have that voice in their head that doubts.
Yeah.
And I think, so it's a really good example of a monster moment. It's a moment when we could be potentially either crippled by self-doubt or we could rise up and out of it and achieve what we want. And I think that the first and most important thing to remember in that moment is that it's simple, we all have our monsters.
Yeah.
That it's perfectly natural and normal to do that. So that means that all of our idols in the past will have had the same thing and they still achieved what they achieved.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is to remember that you cannot fight your monster and win. The monster is an aspect of the self, and you can't wage war on yourself and then emerge victorious. So battling back in those moments doesn't work. It's not the answer is not to submit, though. It's not to say, oh yeah, you're right, mind, I can't do this, I might as well not try.
Yeah.
There's a happy middle ground, and it's acceptance. If we can accept that that stuff is happening, if we can stop and breathe and be comfortable with it and acknowledge it and say it's okay, because that part of the mind really is only trying to protect us. Mm-hmm. It's frightened in that moment because it fears the threat of losing.
Yeah.
And we can thank it for trying to protect us, for trying to keep us away from what it believes to be dangerous. Yeah. But in that moment, losing isn't dangerous, actually.
Not at all.
Not anywhere near as dangerous as the mind is behaving as if it is.
Yeah.
So we just need to be thankful, grateful for that part, but invite it back onto our side. There are a few different visualizations I've put in the book, actually, that can help with this. They'd sound really weird and cheesy if I explained them here. But I think you can just, any metaphor for acceptance would work in those moments. Okay. You can imagine just hugging your monster. You could imagine giving it a pat on the back and saying, it's all right, dude, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're doing, is you're telling to yourself that it's all
okay.
right,
yeah,
as long as you don't fight it.
Yeah, you can deal with this situation.
Yeah.
Okay. So what methods would you use for yourself when you was actually in your career?
Well, stuff like that. My career, so obviously I went through loads of different stages. So when I first started kickboxing and boxing, I wasn't a therapist. I was interested in this stuff, but I had no knowledge about it at all. It'd be interesting to know what my career would have been like if I had that knowledge at the beginning, actually. And what I did is I just went headstrong into my training, and I was training way too much. I even remember one of my coaches coming up to me one day and saying, "You're overdoing it. This should be something you can enjoy for the rest of your life, but the way you're going, you're not going to." Yeah. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Because all I wanted to do was be the best. Yeah. And that competitiveness stretched way beyond just competition. It wasn't just that I had to win the fights. It was like I had to win everything from a press-up competition with my training partner to who could do the most burpees in a minute. You know, I felt like I had to win, not because I loved winning, but because the pain of losing was too much to bear. Because it didn't just feel like I'd lost a press-up position, a competition. It felt like I'd proved myself unworthy as a human being. That sounds really dramatic, but that's basically what it felt like. And that's what I see in so many other people when they get fiercely competitive. I can see that it's just this horrible, horrible, crippling fear of losing that makes them do that. So we can, when we're being competitive, we can be quite mean to people. We can say things that we later regret. Yeah. It's all because we're in the grip of that unnecessary fear. Anyway, so I went through that process, and eventually my body couldn't take it. I mean, I was doing stupid things like training for 2-hour sessions in the day and then feeling like I hadn't done enough. So getting on a treadmill at 2 a.m. in the morning and doing a 10-mile run, and then coming back home and not being able to sleep. And bit by bit, my body just started falling apart. My hair was falling out. My guts just weren't playing ball at all. I was getting really, really sick and tired after every training session, and I was ignoring it because I didn't want to I couldn't even bear the thought of a 2-week break. So I ignored it, and I kept ignoring it until at one point I just crashed, and then I kept crashing over and over.
So you began to feel like you were being weak towards the sport? Yeah,
I felt weak, 100% weak in every way. And I felt mentally weak because I couldn't do the thing that I wanted to do to make myself feel confident. And I felt physically weak because my body was literally, I had to stop I can remember frequently having to stop a few times just to get up one flight of stairs. So I'd take a few steps and then this pain and fatigue and sickness would just flood my body, and I'd have to stop and breathe and then start again.
Yeah.
And then I was still thinking I'm going to get down to the gym tonight. It's bonkers. I was like a relapsing addict.
Yeah.
Just getting down to the gym at the minute I had the opportunity, regardless of how awful I felt. So that all happened, and then I did that quick fix thing. So I looked for the supplements and the doctors and the nutritional plans and the Eastern medicine techniques, everything. I went through everything. I didn't give any of them a proper chance to fix me, because if they couldn't fix me in 1 or 2 sessions or immediately, then I was like, well, that doesn't work. Let me find something else that's going to be better. So I exhausted all those options, and eventually the thing that got me to actually stop and look inside was cognitive hypnotherapy.
Okay.
I'd actually already qualified as a clinical hypnotherapist at that point, which is also a great style of therapy. But for me, the difference came when I worked with Trevor Sylvester, who is the founder of Quest Cognitive Hypnotherapy. And we did a few sessions, and in one of those sessions I had a really defining moment when I changed my perspective on what winning and losing meant, and what it meant to me if I won or I lost.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, my life just totally turned around. I started getting back into competition effectively from that point forward. And then I'd have your original question about 1 million years ago was, what techniques did I use for myself?
Yeah.
So I picked up loads and loads of techniques, and I would use different ones on different days. So breathing techniques, mindfulness techniques, countless numbers of visualizations. I would do EFT, which is a kind of funny tapping thing where you tap on different points of your body.
Yeah.
I would be using power poses. There's a brilliant TED talk by Amy Cuddy, if anyone wants to look at that, which looks at the physiological difference between somebody in an open pose and someone who's in a closed one, a bit like I am now, actually. Not on purpose. If somebody's in an open pose for 2 minutes, their testosterone will rise and their cortisol, which is a stress hormone, reduces. And you get the flip side, opposite effect if someone's in a closed body language.
Yeah.
So knowing this, I made sure that all of my warm-ups had at least 2 minutes worth of open body language in them, so that I was communicating to my body that I should be confident, that I could feel safe, that I had it. And I realised when I learned that all of the rest of the time, because obviously boxing is closed.
Yeah, it's very closed.
It has to be closed.
Yeah.
So in order to be on the pads, you're going to be in a low power body position. So in between the pad work, I was making sure that I opened right up to counter it. And I was making sure I was open as I walked into the ring and all that sort of stuff.
So you felt that worked. Did it work for you?
It worked. I mean, that's incredible. You can see that. Anyone can feel the difference with that. If they've got any awareness of what's going on in their body, they can feel it the first time they try it.
Okay. And
it will be one of the first things I'll tell any athlete that I'm working with, that they need to build that in. So not just athletes as well, like someone getting ready for an interview or something. Yeah. You need to be open.
And be strong in your position.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any future books in the plan?
I've got 1 million future books that I could possibly write. I'm not writing any at the moment.
Okay.
Because this one's only it's been 2 months.
Okay.
So I'm really enjoying doing lots of public speaking this year, actually. Yeah. And I've got a few really exciting workshops and a potential retreat in the pipeline. So I'm focusing on those things for now.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd really like to write another book. But don't ask me what it'll be about.
You don't know yet?
It could be so many different things, I've got no idea.
Is it going to be same type of avenue?
Well, it'll certainly be about the mind.
Okay.
Whether it sticks, it's one of my options that I could go further down the sports route and write a more sports-focused book.
Yeah.
And then the other option is that I go away from that and go more into one of the areas of, perhaps a book on visualization or something like that. Yeah, loads of options.
Sounds interesting. I really can't wait to see the next book, but I'm going to read this one first of all.
Yeah, please do.
And it was a pleasure meeting you today and having this great chat with you. Thank you very much.